Welcome back, accomplices. Did you miss us?
We sure missed you. And we promise we will try to never be gone this long again. The keyword being try. I feel like it's been so long that we need to introduce ourselves again.
We have a lot to go over, so we're not going to do that, but 'tis the season of It's the Thought That Counts. Just kidding. I'm Tara.
I'm Shayna, and welcome to our True Crime Christmas special.
So we figured, since it is the giving season and all, we would give you all what you have been dying for. A new episode of Thick Thighs and Murder Vibes.
It really is the perfect gift. But before we dive into the cases that we have so carefully handpicked to present, we have some updates on former cases that we have covered.
Who could forget Sarah Boone? I mean, really, they just can't shut the fuck up about her. Well, I know that we were going to give daily or weekly updates about her trial, but unfortunately, her trial has concluded, and she was sentenced earlier this month. Before we reveal the outcome, let's rewind a little bit to give you some of the hot goss leading up to the conviction and sentence. Somehow, Sarah worked her lack of charm and landed herself a defense attorney that was willing to take her case pro bono. I don't know if you guys remember, but she had blasted through like 8 fucking attorneys that were court appointed. James Owen responded to a handwritten flyer that Boone had made after he saw it on TV. The ad reads, "Inmate seeks attorney," with inmate and attorney emphasized in bold writing. It goes on to say, "Looking for a prosperous challenge? Ready for your close-up on national television? Are you zealous with a side of keen?" Reads the ad. "Show the world who you are with your original creativity, extraordinary expertise, and confident ingenuity." So Boone did list a number of required qualifications on the flyer, those being trustworthy, honest, compassionate driven, open-minded, exceptional problem-solving skills, client inclusion at all times, team orientation, collaboration, extreme efficiency in listening, communication, understanding, capability of excellence in representation, committed, maintaining faith in the client and case with the ability to think differently, overcome all circumstances, emphasis included in letter. I mean, I really don't like her, but I gotta hand it to her. That was pretty clever. And I mean, it did work.
It did.
I mean, as far as getting the attorney, like it
pro bono,
she did. Yeah, pro bono. So James Owen agrees to represent Sarah Boone pro bono, meaning for free. She was offered a plea deal. So she did actually end up rejecting that offer, which is crazy because it would have allowed her to be free in about 8 years. And it would also have dropped the second-degree murder charge down to manslaughter. Well, Sarah, you've rolled the dice with the rest of your life and you lost. So after 4 days of jury selection and 3 days of testimony, Boone's defense team argued that her relationship with Taurus was marked by alcohol abuse and domestic violence, and that she suffered from battered spouse syndrome. They contend that Taurus's death was an act of self-defense. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because when I need to defend myself, my first thought is to shove someone in a suitcase and leave them there overnight too. Okay.
There's more. During the cross-examination, the assistant state attorney brought the suitcase in question. He brought it out into the courtroom. He asked Boone to explain where Taurus was positioned inside and demonstrating the location of the zippers. She stated, I just
would have had her climb inside to demonstrate.
I know. Oh my God, I know.
Can you show us exactly how you placed him in here?
Or when they find somebody who's the same build and body type as the victim and have them get in there, get on in there.
That's something we should laugh about.
This is what happens when you wake and bake for Christmas.
Highly recommend.
Highly recommend. So Sarah said, I just kind of zipped him up. We thought it was funny. I moved the suitcase around a couple times. And at that point, it was still funny. We were joking and laughing.
Yeah, we all heard the tapes. He was so hysterical.
It's all fun and games until somebody dies. Okay. So Boone also testified that she feared Torres, whom she described as abusive. She thought that he was going to somehow escape the suitcase.
Because, it was hilarious.
Mm-hmm. She said, my fear was that he was going to break out of the suitcase, adding that the suitcase was broken and that she was scared of what Torres might do if he got out. See, and this is the part where you're like, okay, but you're claiming self-defense. You said it was all fun and games. So then at what point did it turn to, fuck, he's in this suitcase now. I'm just going to leave him.
Yeah.
Because now I'm scared for my life.
Yeah.
Like, was it
she
after,
just said he was laughing.
Like, yeah, like, was it after, like, you guys were done laughing and then he's like, okay, Sarah, let me out. And then you didn't let him out. And then you're like, well, fuck, now I can't let him out because he's going to hurt me.
Fuck, might as well just kill him now.
Yeah, might as well just leave him in there. Suitcase is broken anyways. He might escape. So Sarah did end up admitting that she went to bed with Torres still inside the suitcase. When asked by the prosecution if she believed he could breathe, she responded, yes, as long as he was in the suitcase, he couldn't harm me. I don't know what any of that has to do with him being able to breathe. And I mean, at some point, you have to let him out of the suitcase. Like, even if he wouldn't have died, what were you just going to leave him in there until he did? Like,
until he died. Yeah.
So the jury also heard expert testimony that Torres's body showed signs of blunt force trauma, possibly from being hit or from being rolled in the suitcase. Prosecutors maintained that Boone acted with malicious intent, leaving Torres to die. Sarah addressed the court with a letter she had written detailing the horrible abuse she had endured during her time with Torres. She states that he beat her and raped her, choked her until she couldn't breathe, and sodomized her. Unfortunately for Sarah, justice was served, and she was shocked when the jury took only 90 minutes to deliberate and came back with a guilty verdict for one count of second-degree murder. On December 2nd, 2024, Sarah Boone was sentenced to life in prison. Her defense attorney, James Owen, states he will not represent her if she decides to appeal her murder convictions. Sarah Boone is currently serving her sentence at the Florida Department of Corrections. I'm shooketh, Sarah. I'm shooketh.
Shooketh to my core.
I'm not usually at a loss for words, but yeah.
Well, just you wait then, because before we jump into the holiday horrors, we have another update. If you guys remember, in season 2, episode 1, spoiler, my favorite case.
Yes, it is I love it. It's my favorite
Taylor
episode that we've done.
Yeah. Yes, mine too.
You go, Glen Coco.
You go, Glen.
What did she do now?
So, Taylor Shabiznis, in her meth-induced sex adventure, murdered her boyfriend, Shad Therian, and is now serving a life sentence at Taycheedah Correctional Institution in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Probably said none of that correctly.
Taycheedah Correctional Institution in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin.
There we go. She can talk a lot better than I can. Words are hard, okay? So, according to a criminal complaint on July 24th, Shabiznis requested medical attention for a staple that lodged into her arm after a reported fall. A sergeant, later referred to as the victim in the complaint, handcuffed Taylor and took her to a medical room to meet with a nurse. The nurse states that Shabiznis was laughing the entire time, and when the nurse asked what was so funny, Taylor responded that nothing was funny. The nurse then warned Shabiznis that, quote, it might hurt a little bit, end quote, as she approached with tweezers. But as soon as the tweezers made contact with the staple on Taylor's arm, Taylor pushed the nurse out of the way and lunged out of her chair and at the nurse. At this time, the sergeant stepped in so the nurse could safely exit the room. A struggle took place between Shabiznis and the sergeant before the sergeant pepper sprayed Shabiznis. The sergeant stated her head was hit, she had bruised ribs, and her arm was hurt. Shabiznis is facing one count of battery by prisoner. She made her initial appearance on December 10th and has a preliminary hearing scheduled for February 7th at the Fond du Lac County Courthouse.
How the fuck she get a staple in her arm? Like, they just,
Right.
like, when you go to the federal level, is they're just like, you know,
Staples in the wall.
give them whatever they want. Like, they're doing life anyways. Like, I mean, like,
yeah, I have
anyways.
no idea why there would be a staple.
It's funny because my coworker Kelly, I swear he is in love with her. He texted me the other day and said, I bet she gets respect in prison. She's a badass freak. He also said that she was awesome and they should feed Sarah Boone to her for lunch.
They definitely should. But also I feel Like, Shabusiness would eat her regardless if they purposely fed Sarah to her or not.
Sarah could be her last meal. No.
So that's all the updates we have for you. So let's get started with the festivities.
Okay, so as you guys have probably already guessed, with it being Christmas, we are doing a couple Christmas episodes. Not episodes, sorry, cases. So my case takes place like kind of like the whole week of Christmas. So this is the hillbilly from hell. Ronald Gene Simmons was born on July 15th, 1940. At the age of 17, Simmons dropped out of high school to join the U.S. Navy and would be stationed at the Bremerton Naval Station in Washington, which is where Shayna and I are from, where he would meet Rebecca or Becky. I don't know how to say her last name. It's Ulibarri. Yolabari. Whatever. She's really not that important.
If you ever need to feel good about yourself, here's Tara. She's really not that important.
So the two were married in New Mexico in July of 1960.
Also, you said his name was Gene Simmons?
Ronald Gene
the guy
Simmons.
with the tongue from Kiss?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
But not to be confused with Richard Simmons, like, sweating to the oldies.
Oh, yeah, the workout guy.
Yeah. I used to have those videos. Well, my mom had them. I was a little kid. It always amazed me how somebody lost 15 pounds in a 30-minute workout. But anyways, so Ronald and Becky were married in New Mexico in July of 1960. In 1963, Simmons left the Navy and joined the Air Force. In all, Simmons spent 22 years in the military and was awarded a Bronze Star, the Republic of Vietnam Cross, and the Air Force Ribbon for excellent marksmanship. Simmons retired on November 30th of 1979 as a Master Sergeant of the U.S. Air Force. Only a year into their marriage, Simmons and Becky had their first child, Ronald Gene Simmons Jr. 2 years later, Sheila Marie was born, and over the course of 16 years, they would add 5 more to the family: William or Billy, Loretta, Eddie, Marianne, and Rebecca Lynn. Simmons was a very private but controlling man. He ordered the children around throughout the years with many chores, such as building a fortress wall out of cinder blocks in order to keep out unwanted guests. Even the small children had to help, so nobody was excluded.
He built a wall.
Sharing is caring, and he built a wall.
Doing it Simmons before Trump made it cool.
Yeah.
He did it first.
Fuck. Oh, that's so good. Okay. Where was I? Okay. So the Simmons house was never short on things that needed to be done. By the time Sheila was 13, she was all Simmons could think about. Now, Sheila is his oldest daughter.
Gross.
Ew, David.
David.
At the age of 17, he began to molest her. Less than a year later, Sheila was pregnant with her father's child.
At 17?
Yep, at 17. He confessed to his secret to his family and demanded they keep the baby and raise it as part of the family. Becky was humiliated, but decided to stay with her husband.
What a terrible person.
In April of 1981, the Department of Human Services in Cloudcroft, New Mexico, started an investigation into the incest when Simmons was reported for being seen giving Sheila more than just a friendly kiss. I read that wrong. Simmons was reported for being seen giving Sheila more than just friendly kisses goodbye each morning, and eventually the teen admitted to a school counselor that she was pregnant by her father. Of course, though, to avoid being arrested, Simmons and his family fled to Ward, Arkansas, and in 1983 moved to Dover, Arkansas. In a remote and densely wooded area on 13 acres sat 2 mobile home trailers joined together and barricaded like a fortress, with cinder blocks and barbed wire. For Simmons, this was his kingdom, and he was the king. Simmons called his castle of squalor Mockingbird Hill. The driveway was decorated with
King of the castle.
The driveway was decorated with several large no trespassing signs. The road leading to Mockingbird Hill was rutted red clay, and at times was impossible to enter when wet or slick from snow and ice. The yard or areas that the Simmons children kept mowed was covered in piles of junk, and Simmons claimed to be building materials. Piles of junk that Simmons claimed to be building materials. There were several broken down vehicles on blocks and in various stages of demolition scattered around the property. There was no indoor plumbing, which required digging steps cesspits for outhouses. Simmons made the children dig these pits. He held very few low-paying jobs in the nearby town of Russellville and was struggling financially, because this is how it always begins. In the summer of 1987, Simmons' mind was murderous. The three oldest children, Gene Jr., Sheila, and Billy, were all married and living in different cities, raising their own children. Ever since Sheila's left, Simmons seemed to be falling deeper and deeper into depression. Sheila's husband, Dennis McNulty, knew what her father had done to her. Dennis threatened to hurt Simmons if he ever touched her again. Sheila Gale, Sheila's daughter by her father, was treated by Dennis as his own child. After losing control over Sheila, Simmons became more and more controlling over his wife and the younger children still living in the home. He was described as an abusive tyrant who isolated his family from others. He discouraged his wife and daughters from wearing makeup and didn't want them looking good, especially his wife. There was abundant evidence in an unhappy household contained in letters written by Simmons' daughter Loretta, who was 17 at the time, to a close friend and schoolmate, Karen Warnack, who was also 17. The letters speak of the teenager's yearning to escape the hell of a harsh family life dominated by a man she feared. In 2 letters she managed to get to Warnack, Loretta reported that she was depressed by her home life and limited access to friends. She said, "We don't have to go anywhere. I really just need to be with just a friend and try to cheer up. I'd rather be dead than go on like this." She also said, "My dad hates me, says I'm not good enough, yet he claims I'm conceited and can't talk to my mom about anything because she doesn't understand." Warnick said Loretta was cut off from contact with friends because her father would not let her drive and the family had no phone service. The school-aged children were never allowed to attend school functions. Friends were never allowed to spend the night, nor were they allowed to stay over at a friend's house. School officials would later say that they never noticed anything unusual about the children. They were always clean, on time, and held near perfect attendance. Although none of the Simmons children excelled in their studies, none drew attention by falling behind either. There was no record of disciplinary action, and when asked, teachers stated they didn't really know the children. Well, it's incredible that these children could have attended such a small school for so long and managed to remain unnoticed and unknown. Simmons even censored the family's mail by maintaining sole access to their post office box. Simmons monitored his wife's mail. Becky wanted to leave but feared the outcome. Since Simmons read his wife's letters, Gene Jr. got her a secret post office box so she could communicate with them without her husband knowing. They wrote many letters to each other, often discussing a plan of Becky leaving. She had not had sexual relations with her husband in 6 years. Becky started sleeping in the rooms with the children while he locked himself away in his own room when he was not at work. At this time, Simmons was plotting the murder of his family. I always wonder if why he didn't try and do anything with the other girl after she became a teenager. But then I did some digging and we're going to get into that.
What a gross person.
I know. He's not even good looking either. The pictures I found, he's not. He looks creepy.
That's what's important in this case.
Yeah.
If he was good looking, it would be okay. But he's not. So this is not okay.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason why people like 50 Shades of Grey is because he's a rich, sexy dude. If he lived in a fucking trailer park and was missing teeth, people would just think it was weird and creepy. That's fucked up.
That's fucked up.
I literally don't even... I'm sorry, guys. I just disassociated and didn't realize what we were talking about anymore. Incest. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh, God.
Excuse me. Sorry, I had to text Lizzie back because coming over to make cookies.
What cookies you making?
Oh, I promised my grandma that we would make Christmas cookies.
What kind of cookies?
I have no idea. I didn't buy anything for her. I'm just showing up and doing it because I told her that I would.
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Pretty much. Yeah. All right. So now we're getting to the... I almost said good stuff, but...
Oh, the incest wasn't the good part.
Okay. So just before Christmas of 1987, Ronald Gene Simmons made the decision to kill all of the members of his family to ensure they would never leave him.
I mean, that's one way.
Yeah. Also seems kind of contradicting because anyways, so on December 22nd, Simmons drove to the local Walmart in Russellville and purchased a 22 caliber handgun. When he returned home, he first bludgeoned and shot his son Gene and his wife Rebecca and left their bodies where they had fallen. Simmons then focused his attention on his daughter Barbara. Simmons strangled the 3-year-old until he felt her body go limp, then wrapped her body in a black plastic trash bag.
Oh my God.
After having a beer, Simmons dumped the bodies of his wife and 2 children in a cesspit he had just made his children dig in the backyard several days prior. Simmons awaited the return.
Dig their own grave.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Simmons awaited the return of his other children. When they arrived off the bus, he said he had presents for them, but wanted to give them out one at a time.
It's a trap.
You would think, with his track record, these kids would be like, no, I'll pass.
Nah, I'm good.
I'm good.
Thanks, though, Pops.
Yeah. Sending all the children to their rooms, Simmons tells Loretta to follow him outside so she can receive her present first. He then proceeds to beat, strangle, and drown the teen in a rain barrel. The 3 other children, Eddie, Mary Ann, and Becky, were all killed in a similar manner, one at a time. I wish I could tell you this is where it ends, but on December 26th, around noon, the remaining members of the family arrived at Mockingbird Hill for their planned Christmas visit. The first to die was Simmons' son Billy and daughter-in-law Loretta. Both were shot dead as they entered the home in full view of their son Trey. Trey was next to be strangled and drowned as Barbara and the other small children had been. Less than an hour later, Simmons' daughter Sheila and her husband Dennis McNulty, along with the incestuous daughter Simmons had fathered, Sylvia Gale, and the child Sheila and Dennis had together, Michael. Sheila and Dennis were both shot not long after their arrival. Sheila Gale and Michael were both strangled in the same manner as the other children. Simmons laid the bodies of his whole family in neat rows in the living room. All the corpses were covered with coats except Sheila, who was laid out as if in a formal viewing state, covered by Miss Simmons' best tablecloth. The bodies of the 2 grandsons, like to say he was obsessed with Sheila is a bit of an understatement.
That's disgusting. That is your daughter, sir.
Yes. The bodies of the 2 grandsons were wrapped in plastic sheeting and left abandoned in cars on the property. The bodies that had been buried in the cesspit were soaked in kerosene. Simmons said that he believed it would stop the smell coming out of the ground and prevent attracting animals and people. After going out for a drink at a local bar, Simmons returned home later on the evening of the 26th. Apparently oblivious of the corpses lined up around him, Simmons spent the next few days drinking beer and watching TV. On December 28th, Simmons took the handgun purchased earlier that week into town, and his fun was not over. Simmons drove to a law office and shot a young woman named Kathy Kendrick, who was 24 years old, who he, for some reason, blamed for many of his problems. Simmons then moved down the street to Taylor Oil. Simmons had then moved down the street to Taylor Oil Company. Simmons shot and killed a man named DJ Chaffin or Chaffane, I'm not sure, who was 33 years old, and he wounded the owner. He then drove to a convenience store where he had once worked and shot but only wounded 2 more people. Simmons surrendered to police after briefly holding up a hostage at Woodline Motor Freight, where he had once worked and where he had shot a woman simply because he disliked her. Robert Wood, president of the company, said Simmons told the woman he took hostage, "I've come to do what I wanted to do. It's all over now. I've gotten everybody who wanted to hurt me."
Are you sure?
I mean, after the murders, investigators uncovered many letters written to Sheila from her father. In several of these letters... In several of the letters, Simmons professed his love for his daughter and also talked about his anger towards her for abandoning him. He says, "You have destroyed me, and you have destroyed my trust in you. I will see you in hell." Okay.
Because she destroyed him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Many people believe this was the reason Simmons lost control and wiped out his entire family. He never talked about his motive for killing them. That was a secret Simmons would take to his grave. Simmons pleaded for the death sentence at his first trial for the final 2 murders and got it. And at his second trial for his family, he attacked the prosecutor, punching him in the face and attempted to grab a deputy's handgun. This took place as the jury were about to go into deliberation. Simmons was charged and convicted of 16 counts of murder. While on death row, Simmons had to be separated from other prisoners as his life was threatened constantly. This was because he refused to appeal his death sentence, stating, quote, "To those who oppose the death penalty, in my particular case, anything short of death would be cruel and unusual punishment." The other prisoners believed Simmons was damaging their chances of beating their own death sentence, but on May 31st, 1987, saw a governor at the time, who would later become President Bill Clinton, signed Simmons' execution warrant. And on June 25th, 1990, he died. As he had chosen... And on June 25th, 1990, he died, as he had chosen to do so by lethal injection. All right, Shayna.
All right.
Let's see if you can top this.
So mine's not as long. Short, sweet, and to the point, I guess. So this one is the Covina... Is that how you say it? Covina?
Yeah, Covina.
Okay. So this one's the Covina Christmas Eve Massacre. This mass murder was carried out on Christmas Eve 2008 by Bruce Jeffrey Pardo. At about 11:30 p.m., Brucey Boy, who was dressed in a Santa suit, arrived at his former in-laws' house in a rental car. He had with him 4 9mm handguns and a large gift-wrapped package containing a rolling air compressor converted to spray racing fuel.
He's got a package for you.
It's gift-wrapped. It's his dick in a box. It's in
Dick in a box.
When he knocked on the door and his 8-year-old niece answered, Pardo pulled out the handguns and immediately shot, wounding her. He then fired indiscriminately at fleeing partygoers. After opening fire with the handguns, Pardo unwrapped the package containing the compressor and sprayed fuel around the interior of the home. Police believe the fire was intended to be ignited with a flare, but when the fuel contacted an open flame in the house, there was an explosion. Between the gunfire and the flames, a total of 9 family members were killed and 3 were injured. One of the survivors made it to a neighbor's house, where she called police and identified Pardo as the suspect. Pardo had apparently planned a detailed escape. He had rented multiple vehicles and parked one near the house of his ex-wife's divorce attorney, full of supplies and maps of the Southwest and Mexico. Police speculated the attorney might have also been a target. Pardo had also made plans to visit a friend in Iowa and had purchased a Christmas morning plane ticket from LA to Illinois. He was also carrying cash strapped to his body, to fill the Santa suit out.
Stocking stuffers.
However, the explosion and fire had left Pardo with third-degree burns on his arms and legs. After setting the home on fire, Pardo changed out of his Santa suit and drove to his brother's house in Sylmar, where he was later found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. His brother was not present in the home at the time of Pardo's death. Pardo's rental car, parked 1 block from his brother's house, contained remnants of his Santa suit, booby-trapped so that moving the suit would trigger a fire and set off 200 rounds of ammunition. So he definitely thought all of this execution through. At Pardo's house in Montrose, police had recovered 5 empty boxes for semi-automatic handguns, 2 shotguns, and a container for high-octane gasoline. Festive.
Yeah.
They also found what was described as a, quote, virtual bomb-making factory in his home.
Virtual bomb-making factory?
Yeah.
All right.
Does it all 9, I guess? I have no idea.
Does this Santa have any helpers?
Nope. Sounded like he did it all himself. That's where his problem. That's where he went wrong. He needed little people. Police speculate that the motive for Pardo's attack was related to marital problems. In 2004 is when Bruce and Sylvia met. After they wed in January of 2006, their marriage quickly fell apart within the first year because Pardo refused to open a joint bank account with Sylvia. He also expected his wife to use her own finances to take care of her own 3 children. And there is also some speculation that the divorce may have also been caused by Pardo concealing a child from a previous relationship for which Pardo did not pay child or spouse.
Well, of course not.
Right? I mean, just kind of hiding the fact that you have a child from a previous relationship.
Yeah, no shit.
In June of 2008, a divorce court ordered Pardo to pay $1,785 a month in spousal support to Sylvia. During the divorce proceedings, Pardo confided to a friend that his wife was, quote, taking him to the cleaners. In July, Pardo was fired from his job as an electrical engineer for billing false hours. The divorce court suspended the support payments due to financial hardship. However, as part of the divorce settlement, Pardo was required to pay his ex-wife $10,000, and she was permitted to keep her wedding ring and the family dog. She took everything.
She got
Pardo
the dog,
complained to the
too?
court that Sylvia was living with her parents. Right? She got the fucking dog. Pardo complained to the court that Sylvia was living with her parents, so she was not paying rent, and had spent lavishly on a luxury car, gambling trips to Vegas, meals at expensive restaurants, massages, and golf lessons. Which also, who cares how she spends her money?
Yeah.
I'd be mad that I had to give somebody $10,000 too, but that's the agreement of your divorce. And then after that, who cares how she spends it?
Yeah,
it's
well,
not
and
for
it's
kids,
like, honestly,
you guys didn't have kids together.
Yeah, like, honestly, like, $10,000 isn't that much, first off. So it's not like could have been too extravagant. Second, it's not like she's using like the child support to do all of these things. Like, that's money for her.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not child support because he didn't have any children. So that's literally her money to do what she feels is fit. Yeah. He was just bitter. But Bruce and Sylvia finalized their divorce 1 week prior to the attack. So the victims, in addition to 3 injured victims, Pardo killed 9 family members. So he went to his in-laws' house where he killed Sylvia Ortega Pardo, who was his ex-wife. He killed Alicia Sotomayor Ortega.
What the fuck?
Who was his mother-in-law. He also killed Joseph S. Ortega, who was his father-in-law. He killed Charles Ortega, his brother-in-law. Sherry Lynn Ortega, his sister-in-law. James Ortega, his brother-in-law. Teresa Ortega, his sister-in-law. Alicia Ortega Ortiz, his sister-in-law. And Michael Andre Ortiz, who was 17, and that was his nephew. So yeah, it was his in-law family members, not actually directly blood related to him.
Okay, well, damn.
Still ruined their Christmas.
I mean, nothing can beat a killer Santa with a homemade flamethrower. So
yeah, that is true.
So, all right. Well, I think you win then.
Well, it's not about winning and losing. Just kidding. Yes, it is.
Oh, fuck. Well, we do want to give a big shout out to all of our listeners. We hope that whatever holiday you celebrate, it is a good one.
Yes, thank you, everyone. As always, if you have any comments or case suggestions, we'd love to hear them. Hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, or by email at thickthighsmurdervibes@gmail.com.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Bye.
Bye.